Welcome, we are back with another episode of Zero to Hero, Tank Edition. Alright, so we're going to kick it up a notch this episode and dive into some higher keys. Of course, if you're still struggling with routes, it's always best to stay low until you're comfortable. But not us, we dive right into the deep end and hope we don't drown. But before we get into all that, what do you guys want to see next? I'm planning on wrapping this class up in the next episode, so knowing what you want to see next will be great. Also, if you have any stuff you want me to touch on, leave a comment below. While you're down there, you might as well hit that sub button. We're so close to 5k, and I heard if you hit that, you automatically get good pug groups. But surely that's a myth, right?
I don't know.
Let's kick today's episode off with a 6 Halls of Atonement. If you've played this season, you know this dungeon is the king of butt pulls. You've got a really small area, and little mongrels will turn into pirate software when they hit 30% HP. Did you know I used to work at Blizzard? Now this is the fun part, because you blink, and then bam, you're fighting the whole entire dungeon.
Here we go again.
But these are some of the best moments in dungeons, where you gotta lock in and execute this perfectly. If not, you're all gonna die. But nah, jokes aside, these are a real pain. I mostly just feel bad for my healer, but the best thing to do is post up and stand your ground. Focus on living and trying to keep the pack nice, tight, and controlled. With VDH, you have so much crowd control. You've got chains, silence, fear, and even a stun. Mix that in with all your other abilities and you're literally unkillable. And if you do die, hey look, you've got a cheat death. What a fiesta. The first boss in this dungeon is kinda easy. Every so often he will smack you and put a pool on the floor. Group them all on one side, and when his beam is about to go out, kite him away so everyone can safely dodge the beam. We're even putting tips we learned in the last episode into practice. Learning from your mistakes is a big part of tanking, so me taunting this front mob so I don't aggro the reavers was one of the many things I've picked up. Also, things don't always go to plan when tanking. People are gonna die, so don't beat yourself up if your teammate decided they want to be the tank this dungeon. It's not your fault you can't stop your DPS from pumping their hearts out before the pack is even fully gathered. The second boss in this dungeon is very easy on VDH. Using chains to group up the adds makes it so when the boss uses stone shattering, your team can easily take out the dead adds on the floor.
Smash!
On the next rotation of adds, you can also use Sigil of Silence to group the adds up. The angle when you get inside gets a little bit crappy, but just keep your focus on the Houndmaster and interrupt Loyal Beast. Trust me, it hurts. The third boss is kinda rough. There's a debuff that gets put out on 2 players, but who actually cares about that stuff? That sounds like a healer issue to me. There is a cast that needs to be interrupted, so make sure you and your team get that, but the key thing about this fight is leading the ad that spawns to one of the lanterns. This ad has aura, so remove it from the battlefield fast. Apparently, this mini boss is kinda hard, so use your lust here. This was only a 6, so I didn't notice it, but he sucks off the souls to heal himself and also puts a bunch of debuffs on you that do AoE damage. The ads also fixate on people, so run away and try and use as much CC as possible on the ads. The final boss is really easy. Just dodge the statues, and when he brings them all together, stand in the way of the statue so he can't deal big AoE damage on the group. Do all this with a sprinkle of hope and you should be able to time this key. We also timed another 6 Echo Dome, but nothing really crazy happened. My only tip for the final boss is to soak your clone, and on VDH you have so much time and movement, so don't panic. Look left and right before crossing and collect that damn clone. It was also a new week, so we picked up a set piece from our vault.
Nice.
Now let's jump into a 6 Priory. Tell you what, I've missed this pull. Some things have changed in this dungeon. Now you take the elite on the right side of the map instead. I don't know if it's just me, but this has made the dungeon way easier. There were so many annoying casters and mobs on the other side, so clearing this side instead is like a walk in the park. And the mini elite is just as easy. Well, on this key level anyway. There's still some abilities that kinda hurt. Because you took the right side, it also changes the first boss too. You now have a few more kicks and swirls to dodge, but overall, the tactic is still the same. Stay kinda close to your tank, so when he leaps away, we can cleave both bosses down. They share health, so keeping them stacked together makes the boss go down easier. Another cool thing when it comes to tanking is adjusting to your group. If you know your team isn't killing as fast or they're dying on small pulls, well, you will need to adjust the amount you pull. I knew this group were pumpers, so I had no problems pulling this entire room. The gathering can be a little bit tricky, so let me break it down. Sigil the first pack at the door and leap over and misery the grunts in the middle, and use another sigil on the group on the left. I ended up using 2 sigils here just to make sure I had full aggro. I then threw a glaive at the final pack and kited them all back to the middle and hit everyone with fell devastation. I then used change so they're nice and grouped up, and then fiery brand just to live. Once that's about to expire, I'll pop meta. I'll just let the rest play out from here. The confidence in my team didn't waver, so I had no problems pulling this next pack. However, the game had other plans. Yeah, not having any more CC or kicks for me to deal with all them volleys was a bit of a shame. But unlike some people out there, we don't give up. We stand our ground and wait for our team to march back over. As you can see, 6s are becoming a bit of a joke, and even though we kicked it up a notch by doing 8 Echo Dome, it was still pretty much the same. The only deaths we were getting was on my teammates dying to either swirls or walking into the boss. But this gives us an opportunity to work on our routes. Creating routes in pugs is pretty easy. Ideally, you want to pull packs where there's not so much group damage. It's easier said than done, but casters and mobs that do AoE damage usually kill the group, so minimizing that in each pull is key for a successful dungeon. Also, spam opening your Mythic dungeon tool to see which mobs you're going to pull next is also good. Just make sure you're safe before doing it, and after a few runs of the dungeon, you won't even need to open it anymore. My gathering was terrible this dungeon, but I figured out a way to make this pull easier to group. But we will get to that in the next episode. We easily timed this dungeon and got a massive upgrade. We are now officially rocking a 4 set, so these dungeons are going to be a whole lot easier. Well, that's until my teammate disconnected. I thought he'd return by the time we killed the first boss, but no. What about the next pack? Still no sign? Surely after the mini boss, right? I guess not. Oh well, it's still timeable. Let's just keep on. Yeah, you can now FF at 20 on this game too. I'm not gonna lie, this tilted me, but one thing you gotta remember, you are a tank. You are the pillar that holds the group together. Have you ever wanted to be popular? Well, tanking is for you. Yeah, you might get some verbal abuse, you might even hate yourself when going to bed, but it's all worth it because you don't have to wait an hour to get into another key. Boom. You see? So me getting all upset over it was all forgotten about 20 minutes later, and I think that's a lesson many pug people can learn, and that's including me. Just hold that L and move on with your day. After this dungeon, we finally had enough crest to craft a dungeon. What? After this fast dungeon, we finally had enough crest to craft a weapon. Jesus, why can't I say this sentence? After this dungeon, we finally had enough crest to craft a weapon. Oh my fuck. And now we're looking humongous.
Humongous what? Is that sexual harassment?
Let's take this weapon for a spin in an 8 Ara-kara. I've covered this dungeon before, but I just want to talk about the left path after the first boss. My number one advice is don't aggro too many sentries. It's fine if you're in a group of people you know, but in pugs it can be rough. Luckily, I had Misery and a monk who isn't blind, so he easily was able to lock down that stray one. But it could have gone sideways very fast. I'd recommend having a DK on group when doing this dungeon. Hell, I'd recommend having a DK in every group. Once you kill the blood guard, the left side becomes easy. Just make sure to CC the sentries so they don't call another big boy. Interrupt the volleys and you're pretty much been chilling. I always mess up the gather going into the final boss. Getting aggro on these flies are a pain in the ass, but I'm mostly worried about people either ripping aggro on the overseer or not interrupting the cast. So having this in the back of my head causes me to panic. One approach I'm going to do in the future is not rush in to get the flies. If they're not popping in a safe spot, I'm not going to risk dying just to get them. We easily two-chested this dungeon, but now it's time to cycle back to the dreaded Halls of Atonement. Like I say, Each dungeon, you'll learn something new every single time. My approach on the first pull is different this time. I now tank the pack close to the wall. This means when the groundkeepers get to 30% HP, the chances of them running to another mob is low. Also, this time I save chains for when they get low HP, so they can't Usain Bolt away. Even the second pack I took my time and made sure I can gather all the mobs without butt pulling. This one can be a little bit tricky. I've noticed there's like a 50% chance that the elite will aggro anyway, so be cautious on this pull. Also, waiting on certain abilities before grabbing more mobs is a good thing to learn. I knew after getting knocked back there was going to be a frontal right after this, so before jumping over to grab more mobs, I waited so the frontal didn't face my group and didn't cause anyone to panic. The next few 8s were all a walk in the park, so it's time to push 10s. Let's see how that one goes. Also, leave a comment below about all the stuff I mentioned, and subscribe.